We're going to do 3 different settings with a 2.5 diameter faceted stone. These are CZs. Even if you buy 100, measure every stone before you set it. So I just put the stone table down on the edge of the table, put my calipers over it. So you can see this is 2.56, it's just slightly bigger than 2.5, which is good. And we're going to need a 1mm drill bit for our pilot holes, a 2mm drill bit, because when we drill through we want 1/2 millimeter left over for a step to be able to set the stone in. And we need to know the height of the stone so that we know the thickness of the material we need so the culet won't stick through. So this particular stone, if I can get it on my calipers, is 1.76 high. So, and anything that is 1.76 or thicker will let you set the stone without the culet sticking through. Now, this material that I have is 2.14. I'm going to roll it down to 2 mil. So I'm going to do a gypsy set, a bead set, and a cheniere setting, and the cheniere we're going to solder on top. So our little piece of cheniere has to be roughly 2 mil high so that our stone will fit in. And I've cut this 2.04. Now for a cheniere setting, it needs to be 1/2 mil bigger on the outside diameter than your stone and 1/2 mil smaller on the inside. So the inside diameter of this is 2 mil, which is great because then we can burr it for our stone to 2.5. So the first thing we'll do is sweat solder a piece of cheniere onto this plate. So I've got my cheniere, made sure that it was nice and flat, and I'm going to position 2 pieces of 1.5 mil long hard solder on the top. So we want it to sit just right on the edge. Place it with your flex brush so that the solder is also flexed. Then we'll heat this slowly so the flux dries out. And we want to keep the solder right on the top edge. What you could do is you could take a little ball burr and circle that top. But, sorry. So I'm just going to slowly heat this up until the flux dries out. And then we should be able to just melt that. So there, the flux is dry. I'm just going to circle, and the solder should flow. There. So now we'll position that on top of our plate, flex the plate, and we'll just flip that over. I'll shift this so you can see. So I've got that little spot of flux there, and you don't have to do anything to your cheniere other than flip it over where you want to solder it. Now another way to do this is you could drop your solder down inside the cheniere, but what we don't want is we don't want a big glob of solder on the outside. By sweat soldering we'll just have a nice little clean line all the way around. So get this positioned where you want it, and we'll heat the plate up and then just circle it and our solder will flow. I'm using a number 7 tip on my Smith's mini torch. And I do that especially for this. This is a 2 mil thick piece. And if you try to heat this with a 5 or a 6 tip, oftentimes it takes a lot longer than it should. And sometimes the solder doesn't flow at all. So we're just circling the cheniere because we don't want the heat directly on it. The spillover of the heat will be plenty to heat the cheniere. And if you put the heat directly on the cheniere, it's a good chance you'll melt it. So we're just circling. You can see that the flux has gone clear. And the solder has flowed right there. So we have a nice little clean meniscus all the way around. No cleanup involved. So quench this at this point and pickle it. So I need a 2.5 round burr and a 2.5 stone setting burr. And when you measure these, zero your calipers, put the burr in the wide part of the jaws and turn it. If you don't turn it, you'll get a false reading. So this is, it says 258 here, which is exactly the size of the stone. And the ball burr is 2.53. Always measure these. I've pulled this out of the pickle. And if you look, you can see this nice line around the cheniere, nice smooth curve where the solder has flowed. And that's what you want. So there's absolutely no cleanup on this. Now we're going to drill holes in our plate. And you always want to use a punch where you're going to drill. And for this setting, I'm going to drill through the cheniere and these two holes. And the reason I'm going down through the cheniere is if the stone is set incorrectly, then you can push it out from the back. So it's the same for all three of these. So onto your wooden bench pin, and I'm using the micromotor. If you have one of these, it's just nice because you don't have the wind up of the flex shaft. It's luxury. If you don't have one, just use your traditional flex shaft. These are both Fordham from Rio. And a little bit of wax on your drill bit helps it not to stick. Just rest it in the depression. So drill all three. So I've gone through all three with the 1 mil. I'll just leave the cheniere with the 1 mil. Then we're going to go through these two with a 2 mil. And then we're going to burr. So I have the 2.5 round burr on. Once again, wax the burr. And we're going to just go into the wide part of the burr. And I find that I like to turn these at a fairly slow speed. So that's the depth we're going in. And that's actually the depth that we're going in for all three settings. And the cheniere. Try not to let the burr chatter, because if it chatters, it makes a really rough seat. So now we're going to go in with our stone setting burr in all three of those holes.